Hi, this is Deb Watson, and this morning we're painting a fuzzy duckling floating in the water. You can find the outline page and the reference photo on my website at www.debwatson.org. I'm going to be doing the duckling and the water in layers. For the first layer of the duckling, I'm painting the entire thing with lemon yellow, and I'm using a fairly big brush. The yellow goes underneath the brown and will help the brown glow to make a happy painting. When I get the yellow done, I dry it completely. Now for the brown, almost any dark brown will do. Today I was trying transparent brown oxide, and I'm putting the first layer of brown on the duckling. This will dry a lot lighter than it looks on the paper while it's wet. And you don't have to be terribly careful with the first layer, but just be careful you're not painting part you want to keep yellow, which I just did. You notice that I switched to a smaller brush when I need to pull the paint up and make some lines that suggest feathers. Using the right size brush for whatever area you're working will help you do a better painting easier. I used a small brush for the small areas and a big brush for a big area. Ducklings are yellow underneath, and then they have brown with a few yellow spots showing through. There's lots of fuzzy pin feathers, and we're going to be doing those with different layers of dark and light. For the first layer, all you have to do is get the brown down. I start at one side and then work my way over. That way I don't end up with the wet watercolor running into the drying areas and causing a bloom. But even if it does, just keep painting because the next layer could cover up a bloom easily. Now I switched back to my big brush. I also want to show you, this is called a liner or a rigger brush, and you can make tiny little lines with these. It's a handy brush to have. Now I'm going to dry the first layer of brown. For the water, I'm going to put on a first layer of light blue. It's very light blue. And I was using cerulean with just a touch of my brown to tone it down a bit. Once again, I start in one corner and work my way across, using a big brush. And this will dry a lot lighter than it looks, almost white. And there's the first layer of water, and I'm going to dry that. For the ripples, if you refer to the reference photo, you can see where it's darker and lighter. And I'm just coming in with another layer of blue. Your water doesn't have to be blue. You can make it green or brown. A lot of times in the spring, when there's ducklings, the water is quite muddy. And almost any color that you like will work. I'm going to put the leg of the duckling showing at the very last. I have it drawn in, but since it's under the water, I'm going to paint the water right on top of it first. It can be confusing to know what to paint blue and what to leave light blue, so just look at your reference photo and almost anything will work. Now, in order to give the painting a little bit of depth, I'm going to make some very light lines by re-wetting and lifting up in the back. This keeps it from looking too flat, but doesn't end up with too many lines in the water. Okay, the top of the little duckling's head was in the light, so I'm softening up the edges a little bit, and now I'm going to try a few things to create some texture for fuzz. I'm using the liner brush with the yellow mixed with the brown and putting some fuzz on the light areas. I'm trying a new color, it's Naples yellow, that somebody gave me to try, and it's opaque. So I'm seeing if it will cover the brown enough to create some light colored fuzz on top of the brown. But it's not doing a very good job. I went back to my brown and made a lot thicker paint by using more paint and less water. And I'm going to give the dark part of the duckling a second coat using some big broad strokes. Just to build up some rich color for this duckling. I don't have to dry this because it's not touching, but I come back and put a little bit more blue and brown in the water to suggest a reflection. I want a reflection of the yellow in the water too, so I put a little bit of that right on top there. Right under the duckling, there's a shadow. So I mix my dark brown with a little dark blue and suggest the shadow. Now he's really seated in the water. Now I'm going to come back and suggest some more fuzzy detail, but I'm not putting it in every single spot. A lot of times when people learn a new technique, they overdo it. And if the duckling has some light areas where you can't see the fuzz, you need to leave those. Otherwise, you can do the texture as much as you like. On the yellow areas, I'm using the yellow mixed with the brown and just tiny little strokes that are going in the direction that I see the feathers going on my reference photo. If you have hard edges, you can re-wet them and lift them up with a paper towel. I'm using the dark brown to create a few long fuzzy pin feathers sticking out mostly at the top. But he's starting to look fuzzy already. You notice that his head and his eyes around his eye gets the most detail. That helps keep your viewer where you want them, looking at that cute fuzzy duckling's face. I leave a line of white, or almost white, at the bottom of the eye to help separate it from the dark brown stripe. I mixed yellow, red, and brown to make a dulled down orange for his beak. It has a light area at the end and a lot of brown. So I come back with a little more brown. Now I'm going to put in the long, lighter pin feathers. I used my Pro White and mixed it with a little bit of the brown. Pro White is a white ink that's water soluble and it covers very well. I just find it works better and is easier to use. Putting a highlight on the beak and strengthening the highlight in the eye. So I'm using the Pro White mixed with brown to put in the light pin feathers that I see sticking out. And that goes over the dark area. And there you have a fuzzy duckling. I'm going to go back with more dark blue, strengthen the shadow underneath the duckling. And last but not least, I'm going to put his foot in this little area of water where you can see it in the reflection. I'm using the same color I used for his beak. And more dark. And there's your duckling. Ducklings are a nice sign of spring. Happy painting!